Powered by Red Media in partnership with TSN, it is episode 45, season 5 of the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast, and it is presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey, who have introduced the first release of the Canadian Club Invitation Series, CC 15-year-old Sherry Cask, all the hallmarks of classic Canadian Club with the added richness and sweetness of sherry. And I don't know this for fact, Ray Ferraro, but our guest, Don Waddell, the president and general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes in episode 45, has been known on occasion to have a glass of red. So I'm going to assume, given he's a classy individual, been around a long time, he too would enjoy the CC 15-year-old Sherry Cask. I get that sense. Yeah. How about you?
I do, and the reason is because Donnie is a storyteller.
Oh boy.
Like, he's been around for 40 years of around the NHL in some capacity as a scout. Like, I think people assume these guys become a general manager and they just land as a general manager.
Yeah.
They've been bottle washing at the start and, traveling around and, doing like the hardest, most unglamorous jobs. And then they work their way and they become a manager. Donnie has stories from every angle. And when that team, I'm sure, like, we'll hear, like, when you put the team together in 1999 in the expansion draft, they didn't have the rules of today.
No.
I think teams got to, I think teams got to protect 11 skaters. So, like, you got the 12th best player on every team. And you know what happens when you do that, Drakes? You get 14 wins.
So, yes, we will revisit some of those great tales from the era of the Atlanta Thrashers with Don Waddell of the Carolina Hurricanes. In headlines, Ray, coming up shortly, we know the trade winds are blowing. And, I used to love the chase. Now it's more of a grind. It's certainly complicated because of the cap. But Chris Tanev dealt by the Calgary Flames through New Jersey to the Dallas Stars as we kick off our headlines, brought to you by Tim Hortons. Delicious new loaded wraps and bowls. The sweet chili chicken is a perfect blend of sweet and heat. Enjoy one today for dine-in, takeout, or delivery. The classic cilantro lime and habanero chicken loaded wrap or bowl also available only at Tim. So I gave the essence of the trade that lands Chris Tanev, a coveted right shot defenseman in Dallas. But I'll quickly just read through it for anyone who's listening or following us on YouTube. Tanev to the Stars and the rights to unsigned goalie Cole Brady. It was a 3-team trade, as we know. Brady was traded to Calgary for Tanev. The Flames agreed to retain 50%. New Jersey then trades Tanev to Dallas for a fourth in 2026. New Jersey retained 50% of Tanev's contract. Flames then trade Brady to the Dallas Stars for defenseman Artem Grushnikov, a second in 2024, and that conditional third-round pick in 2026. I mean, holy smokes. Yeah. There is a lot of juggling with 3 teams involved, salary retention, pieces here, pieces there, before Dallas ends up getting a player that they very much wanted and obviously need.
Yeah, and one NHL player moved in the deal out of all of that. So for people that are doing the math, so since Calgary took 50% of Tanev's contract, the Devils took 50% of what was left. So that's 25% because they offloaded Tanev and another 25% to Dallas. So for Dallas to make that deal work, their cap space had to match a certain number. And that's why they needed to involve the Devils. So just think of how that deal goes. You know, if you're Jim Nill in Dallas, you get it known to Craig Conroy that you're interested in Tanev, but you know what your cap space is.
Yeah.
So you have to work the deal backwards and find a team that's willing to take 50% of the 50% remaining.
Yeah.
And so you probably shop that around to a bunch of different teams, and the team you agree to, which in this case is the Devils, you look at and go, where's their pick? Where do I think their pick is going to be? Where do what is the what's the purchase price, which in this case was a 4th-round pick. It's super complicated to to go ahead and try and piece that all together. And look, Dallas now, Dallas is a good team. They needed a defenseman. They really did. But what's happened in Dallas is, so that everybody knows about Miro Heiskanen, and what they probably don't quite realize yet is Thomas Harley has made a mad rush this year. He has been fantastic. So now you've got Lindell, Harley, Heiskanen, and Tanev. It's a pretty good top 4. However they want to match them up and stuff. And that'll be over the next couple of weeks that Pete DeBoer is going to be able to mix and match and go, okay, what's my best pair? Dallas is a formidable team.
So the reaction to the deal, less on Wednesday night when the transaction was completed, more this morning as we record this episode Thursday morning, has been interesting, because the teams with available defense are looking at this trade and going, what in the hell did Craig Conroy do here? Because the reality is, okay, he gets the 2nd-round pick. He gets what I'm told is a very defensive defenseman prospect in Grushnikov. Did not get either Logan Stankoven or Maverick Bourque, who were deemed untouchable by the Dallas Stars. But again, if you're one of those teams who has available D, right shot D, you're like, well, I guess we're not likely getting a 1st-round draft pick for our guy at this stage.
Well, and the first guy I think of is Sean Walker in Philadelphia, who's, has been rumored quite significantly. And Walker's smaller and doesn't have the track record that Tanev has. He's had a really great year. And the Flyers are sitting there walking along this thin line of trade, sell, buy. This does not help the Flyers if they hope to recoup a 1st-round pick for Sean Walker. So this is the part of the game that is the most interesting to me, Dregs, is so you're sitting in your chair, you're the GM, and now it's a game of chicken. How long can you afford to wait before somebody says, yeah, you know what, this other defenseman's 95% as good as, example, Sean Walker. I can't wait anymore. I got to get him.
Yeah.
And then you get to the deadline, and if Daniel Briere waits too long, he's got Sean Walker. Yeah. And you don't get an asset back for him. And now he's an unrestricted free agent going into the summer. Like, this is the part of the game to me that is fascinating. And for all the slow play of trades, Dregs, you know this from talking to managers, I'm sure, forever. Yeah. It gets moving fast right now. You better be prepared, because you don't have a lot of time to think anymore.
And look, in defense of Conroy and the Calgary Flames, they wanted to do right by Chris Tanev. And we know what we're getting into going into this weekend, right? You're going to start seeing players who are sitting, they're healthy scratch, just to protect the asset. You don't want to risk injury, with the trade deadline now just over a week away. Maybe Tanev and his agent Wade Arnott said to Conroy and the Calgary Flames, look, we don't want to do that. Let's just get this process going. If it's Dallas, we're happy with Dallas. Make the deal. I got a strong sense that was part of it, and I can appreciate that.
Well, and then so you sign the papers, everything goes off, gets transmitted to the league office, and as soon as it goes across the wire, Conroy's phone rings again. And what are you doing with Hanifin? So they're on to the next one, and this is a hard part. First year as the general manager, and oh hello. You've got some big fish in the pond.
Yeah. Another huge developing story around the Vancouver Canucks, and full credit, Frank Saravalli reporting on Wednesday night that the Canucks and Elias Pettersson's agents, JP Barry and Pat Brisson, have engaged in negotiations. My understanding is those talks got underway late Tuesday, continued into Wednesday. You're looking at an 8-year deal. It was originally reported, I think, by David Pagnotta that it was 8 years times 12. Not true. it'll be in that Nylander range, is what my sense is, which I guess is fair. But I'm more interested, Ray, in the dynamic of how all of this came together now. And look, there's still a lot of talk and negotiation that has to move forward here before the deal is signed, right?
Right.
But it was dead quiet, aside from the speculation in the market and certainly nationally, on why isn't this happening? Why aren't they engaged in negotiations? And then all of a sudden, there's a report that the Vancouver Canucks are potentially talking to teams. Could we see Pettersson traded? And then the switch gets flipped, right? Because now the club is saying, all right, well, if you don't want to come to the table, that's fine. You're a restricted free agent end of this year. You're entitled to your position, but we don't have to sit here quietly. I mean, I think that this is an experienced executive in Jimmy Rutherford and his general manager, Patrick Allvin, working the process, trying to get it over into their side, in their favor. And if it ends up with a contract extension, which it seems likely it will for Elias Pettersson, it's a business, right? Maybe feelings get hurt a little bit. Big deal. You got the player signed long-term.
Well, yes, except that, each side by their actions is trying to just put a little wedge in to just like push the leverage a little bit their way.
Yeah.
It's not much, because it's not like Vancouver's going to offer a 2-year contract at $8 million.
No.
Like, everybody knows what the parameters are. The number of years will impact, of course, whether it's 5 years or 8 years, or will impact the dollar figure. But the one, I got to tell you, like, living in Vancouver, there is nothing from Pettersson. Like, nothing. People like to think they can wedge into information.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Good luck.
But, and that's him. Like, he's a very reserved, has a very reserved persona.
Yeah.
Right? That's just the way he goes about his business. And so I found it interesting that there was nothing. And then that report came out yesterday from Frank, and like, clearly in the last week, there's been a change of thought. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Nobody's impervious to pressure.
No.
Neither the team nor the player.
Yeah.
And eventually it gets to a point that it does. I can't speak for him, but I know it does affect the player in particular. Like, I don't know him, so I'm not saying I know this is what happens.
Yeah.
But you start to feel the pressure. People start coming. They want to ask you more often. There's more articles. There's been more noise around this extension or non-extension in the last week. And if you like it here, you can say, I want to do it at the end of the year. But if you like it, then just do it. And then it's finished.
Agreed.
And so maybe that's where they're at. I think this is just a guess. If this deal gets done, I think we'll see the best Pettersson we've seen this year.
Yeah.
And he's had a very good year. Yeah. But there's another gear there. There really is.
Yeah.
And for the Canucks, Draits, super important to find out what, if they can, I mean, if Pettersson wants to come to the table and get this done, super important to find out what exactly is the dollar figure. We have 9 free agents this summer. We have the trade deadline coming up. We'd like to know what we have to work with.
Yeah.
And that becomes the pressure point the other way.
And I think that Nylander number, it's a big one, right? 8 years, $92 million, 11.5 annual average salary. That's got to be the comp. That's got to be the ballpark, the vicinity of what, CAA and Elias Pettersson are looking for.
Well, okay, we just talked about the Tanev trade and how that sets the market.
Yeah.
Right? The Nylander contract sets the market for players in that age group. The difference is Nylander was going to be an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah.
And Pettersson is an RFA, a restricted free agent at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you got a winger versus centerman. And teams most likely will be more apt to pony up for a centerman than a winger in almost every case.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just mentioned that you expect Petey to play his best hockey. Once
I
the
think
deal
the
gets done.
stress, even though
Yeah.
he's never talked about stress, never
Yeah.
said a word. This
Yeah.
is just my gut feel that
Yeah.
you can exhale a little bit.
I think that's right, but that leads me to what I have as our final item in headlines, and that's a layer of grumpiness that we're seeing. Not necessarily stick slamming and all of that from Elias Pettersson, but there have been instances where you can just kind of see, going through the motions a little bit. But you also see some of that, but more animation from Leon Draisaitl of late, right? In Edmonton, where man, he's wearing his heart on his sleeve. And Chris Knobloch has talked about you love the passion and all of that, but you also wonder how much of that factors into Draisaitl looking forward and looking at his future, whatever that might be this summer or down the road.
Well, there's no, I mean, you can say, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you, it does.
Yeah.
Just from playing in the last year of your contract, it is impossible not to look ahead. As much as you tell yourself, don't look ahead, you do look ahead. If you're an emotional guy or a tightly wound guy, that look ahead, tension, stress, you see it. Yeah. Other guys, you can never tell. Like you can just never tell. They don't show any real emotion. Draisaitl and Pettersson, to make a comparison, are you see it in their body language when things don't go well.
Yeah.
And you could see it like Donnie Waddell will talk about, I'm sure, like when I break sticks all the time, but you could see it. Like that was my release.
Right.
Their release, like I would smash my stick and the trainer would have both my spares waiting and he'd just hand them to me. And so for these guys, it's a shoulder drag. It's, it's like a frustration. Poof.
Yeah.
And that comes in the last year of the contract. It is inevitable. Everybody's allowed to play out their contract, but it's harder than most people would think. Even though, yes, I know fans will go, oh, they make millions of dollars. They should be able to.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because in their world, that stress is real and it's every step of the day. Even though everyone is telling them, don't worry about it. You're going to get yours. It's going to be fine. They all know that, but it doesn't matter in the immediacy. And I'm just telling you from standing in far less expensive shoes than those guys are standing in, it's coming. Like, you're going to get signed.
Yeah.
But the stress is there every day.
Those are your headlines. Thank you to Tim Hortons.
Introducing Tim's new sweet chili chicken loaded wraps and bowls. Packed with delicious and hearty ingredients and topped with our new sweet chili sauce. Try Tim's sweet chili chicken loaded wraps and bowls today.
Our interviews on Rain Dregs brought to us by Canadian Club Whiskey, who have released the Canadian Club Invitation Series, CC 15-year-old Sherry Cask, signature CC Classic 12-year-old whiskey finished with a secondary aging in Oloroso Sherry Casks. All right, great to be joined on the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast by the President and General Manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, Don Waddell. And Don, I'm sure there are a million old Atlanta Thrashers stories that involve Ray Ferraro, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. But as a GM who's been in that office for a long, long time, take us through how complex and difficult it is to execute a three-way trade like the one we saw with Calgary, New Jersey, and the Dallas Stars. More complicated than the deal that you made sending Ferraro to, where was it? For
St. Louis.
Was it right? Camille Piroche. Is that right? Was that the deal?
Yeah, there was a big market for 37-year-old Ray at that time.
Well, we all, when you're setting up trades, I mean, obviously we have every team's cap, what they have for cap to spend. And, there's a lot of teams that make it well known that, they could be a middle person. And if there's a trade that needs somebody to hold money. So I think pretty much all that work is done ahead of time. You may check around to see who's selling a fourth round pick for X amount of dollars. Everybody's got different pay scales of charts of what the expectations are. But, it's not where it gets difficult is that last day. When you're rushing. I know I did a couple deals right at the deadline where there's a middle person, and that's a little bit more hectic. But in today's day with technology and everybody knowing what everybody's cap is, hopefully, I know we're prepared, and I'm sure the other 31 teams are prepared for the same thing if it comes about.
When you make that decision that, okay, I think we can be a broker team, I assume, like, is that constant communication with ownership to say, hey, we're going to take some money on here. Oh, we're going to get nothing for it but a draft pick. Like, or does that just come in your budget? Do with your budget what you do.
Well, I think every team operates differently. With us, we just want to make sure we keep Tom abreast of what we're going to do. Again, we have a chart, and if we're staying within our chart, we're pretty free to do what we need to do. And for us, we have some cap space right now, and we want to be careful in case something comes along that we want to spend it on than necessarily being a broker. But if something came about, you got to look at every situation just to see if it makes sense for your hockey club.
Donnie, you guys have put together a really great run the last few years in Carolina. You seem like you're right there and right close to jumping through. And then there's always an end to a season, and you look forward to the next year. And how do you mitigate the risk of, okay, we could go big here and trade a bunch of first rounders, or are we close enough? Are we good enough? Like, in your head, how do you square that all up?
I think when you look at it, I think the last couple of years between 8 and 10 first round picks, and we got traded around the trade deadline, and if we remember right, only one team wins the cup. So you want to be careful. We always say, my line has always been, we build our team in the summer, not at the trade deadline. Doesn't mean you can tweak and do some things at trade deadline, but there's, in hockey, such a team sport that there's not too many guys, and those guys aren't getting traded, that are really game changers and game breakers. If you got some injuries, you got a need. Like Dallas needed a defenseman, they went and made the trade for Tanev. I mean, they had a particular need. So if you have that, that's one thing. But just to add for the sake of, because somebody else is adding, we don't look at it that way.
Our sense is, Donnie, that you're looking for a top 9 forward between now and next Friday. Fair to say that you'd prefer a player with at least some term as opposed to diving into the rental market?
Yeah, that would be our first choice. And, I'm talking to all the teams right now, and it's the same conversation that we'd rather make a hockey trade, get somebody that's, if we're going to give up some assets and good assets, somebody that's got some term left that is good term from dollar standpoint and the years left. So that's always our preference when we look at any of these deals, Darren.
You guys, I'm fascinated. We've done a lot of your games over the last couple of years at ESPN, and we come in there, and every time we go in, there's a new goalie in net, and you guys get the same result. It's like I've never seen anything like it, Donnie. Like the goalies that you guys have had to move in and out and piecemeal together, and I guess it speaks to the way you play because everybody seems somewhat insulated. I think it's 4 this year, right?
Correct.
4 goalies this year already, and hoping for Freddie Anderson back at some point.
Yeah, actually it's 5 because Peretz, we called up from the East Coast League, actually got to play.
That's right.
For us, so it's 5, but who's counting? Freddie's doing well. He's been practicing. He had the blockages, and he's been cleared over a month ago or so. It's been on the ice. We expect to see him here in the very near future and give us. We have 3 goalies on our roster right now, and that'll give us 4 on our roster. So we'll have to figure that out here soon. It's hard to carry too many goalies, but like you said, I think it's a couple things, right? It's certainly the way we play. We spend little time in our zone. You look at all the possession numbers and analytics, which obviously are becoming a bigger part in the game today. We don't spend a lot of time in our zone, and I think it's a credit to first our defense. I think 1 through 6 were pretty solid. Defensively, we got guys that can move the puck, and then we got to give credit to our goalies because we do abandon them sometimes. And we went through a period there where everybody was hurt, and Ranta carried us for 8 or 9 games, and then he got hurt, and Kochkov came in, and then we picked up Spencer Martin on waivers. His first start was in Boston, easy start, and he won. Then his second start was in Vegas, and he won. He got to play home against Chicago once, and they lost in a shootout in Buffalo. So he's 3-0-1 with us, and we picked him up as an insurance policy, and that insurance has certainly paid off by now.
When you took over in Carolina, the makings of the team were starting to be pieced together. What is remarkable and people might not understand is what hockey in Carolina has become, and the event the game has become when you pull into the arena, and just it's a scene. It really is, isn't it?
Yeah, we're very fortunate. Our fans have really supported us as the team got better, and I think the other night was our 51st straight sellout. We got that atmosphere. First of all, normally we have pretty good weather. We're known for our tailgating. I know we played last week on 8 o'clock game at home. People were 10 o'clock or starting to get their smokers going and grills going, and it was a crazy atmosphere out there, which it normally is as long as the weather cooperates. But we're very fortunate, and I can't say enough about our fans of how they've responded, and it's been a great run, and hopefully we can reward them with the cup.
Okay, if people haven't been there, I got to ask, because it's my favorite thing when we pull in there. Who puts all those bloody traffic cones out? There has got to be 1,000 traffic cones, and you got to kind of know where you're going. Who's the traffic cone guy, master?
It's a crazy story, because actually there's 2,100 that go out per game.
Awesome. I'm using that next game, by the way. I'm using that.
You go out different entrances. That's one thing we're working on. We got big development plans right now, is the ingress and egress, because we really only have two ways into our parking lots. One way comes to a 4-way stop, and the other one comes to a 3-way stop. So the cones are necessary to try to keep traffic moving. We hope to solve that problem, but yeah, we do have a master of the cones. He's about a 75-year-old guy that he'll be out there 5 o'clock in the morning, and he just loves it. He just set up cones, and it takes him till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon before he gets it all done.
That's outstanding.
It is amazing pulling in, and you're like, oh my God, like it's as far as you can see. It's amazing.
That's terrific. Don Waddell, President and General Manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, joining us on the Ray and Dregs podcast. As promised when we made the introduction here, Donnie, we have to go back to the days of the Atlanta Thrashers because there's so many different stories, and so many times Ray has referenced this with former teammates and whatnot. Is there a story that comes to mind specifically about Ray or that team? I mean, 14 wins that one season was that's a tough one.
That was pretty good for that team, actually.
That might have been our high water mark.
Well, I always said, Ray's my second favorite player to ever play for the Thrashers.
Everyone else
is tied for first. Yeah. Actually, we had some fun. We had a different situation, and it was, it wasn't any surprise when I went in there, and we got new ownership. Their direction, obviously they were NBA people and not NHL people. And the mandate was, spend as much money as you can and try to make it run a business. But, everybody said, how do you survive there for so long without success? I said, I did what the owners asked me to do. And, we were a little bit off the radar with the NBA team and that. But Ray was the first player, I can say this honestly, that I ever went to about trading. He was obviously getting toward the end. And, I remember going to him, just asking him, we were obviously going to make the playoffs. Did you want to go someplace? And then we talked about it and figured it out and ended up sending him to St. Louis. And but, yeah, no, Ray I don't know if Ray's got a little temper on him sometimes.
He's worked hard on it over the years, though. Let's give him some credit.
It's only been 20 years, Donnie. I think I'm getting better.
I think if Ray was playing today, the way the sticks are made, he'd break 3 sticks every shift. But back when he was playing, they were a little heavier, a little harder to break. So, again, you always get measured by your success, but you also got to measure. I always look at the people you surround yourself with, and for the most part, every once in a while you run across somebody that's not part of your group, but Ray was always one of our leaders, and trying to keep our group together because we had some challenges there for a little bit, to say the least.
When you said, Donnie, that we, sometimes in Carolina you abandon the goalies. I mean, that's like when you guys allow like 31 shots. We went through goalies there, like poor guys back there. We couldn't stop anybody, and I'm amazed. Like when you put that together, and you've got like, do you just try to put it together on the budget, or did you try to say like, okay, we got to try and find a goalie, or we need 5 of them, which we used, I think, almost every year.
Yeah, we used 7 the one year.
7 goalies.
Still, it's not a memory anymore. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
But we were cost conscious, so we had to take a lot of risk on some guys that didn't have the great pass for staying healthy. But we weren't paying any big salaries, and we had a couple of ones that really hurt us. The Posse Nurminen.
Yeah.
We signed him for multi-years, had a good year for us year before, and a month before training camp, he tears his knee up and major surgery and never played again. And, we had Kari Lehtinen, who was a big pick, who started off really good, and then, he couldn't stay healthy. So, injuries are a part of it. Unfortunately, that goaltending thing seems to just come with me wherever I go. But, no, there was, like I said, I enjoyed my time in Atlanta. Obviously, you always wish you had more success, but certainly Ray was a fun part of what we had going on there.
Okay, I got to ask you about the 20th anniversary of the Miracle on Ice. We actually won that night in Colorado at overtime. There was a bunch of stuff on the TV about, the Miracle on Ice, and hell, I think we were. We hadn't won in like almost 18 or 20 games or something. And we won that night, which was just, it was like, that was the true Miracle on Ice that we won. But for the people that don't know, Donnie, you had a tie to that team. And lots of people don't know and wouldn't know that you were a player of that caliber. Like you were there, and then you got hurt.
Yeah, no, that's kind of you to bring that up, Ray. Yeah, no, I was very fortunate. We started. I was fortunate. First of all, I played in the first 2 World Junior tournaments, which people didn't even know U.S. were playing back in 76, 77, and 76 was in the old Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic. The next one was Gretzky's year in Montreal, and then broke my leg at a sports festival. Came back, joined the Olympic team on the road in Europe. Back in October, late October, and then in end of December in Lake Placid, there we're playing those games. I hurt my knee again, so it was disappointing. But when you have that opportunity to be around those guys and to see what they went through, to have the success that they had, I felt really good for them, and several of those guys are still very good friends of mine through the years, and it's a great story. Great for, I think it really helped USA Hockey get on the map in the United States, and now you see we draft players from every state in the country. So it was a great experience, and felt very fortunate being part of it.
So a lot of connection to the team people have through the Miracle movie. Like, how realistic was Herb Brooks in that movie because were you on that team that was skating up and down the ice in Norway?
Oh yeah.
Again.
Yeah. Again. Like anything you see, some of it gets a little bit, maybe a little bit heavier than it really is. But I'm going to tell you, 95% of that movie was right on, and there's a reason they won the gold medal, and obviously Herb knew what he was doing, pushing all the right buttons, and he was tough. There was a couple stories that I don't know if you got a second here, but at the Christmas party, it's in the movie. We all exchanged names, and I actually drew Herb Brooks' name. And So I didn't do this alone. I had some help. But, so, we bought him a whip.
Oh,
Come on.
wow.
It's kind of got left out, but we were in Lake Placid, actually, and everybody opened their gifts. They're all gag gifts. I had real bad acne. People got me this acne cream, stuff like that. It was a fun time. So the last one that opened his gift, and when he opened it, he wasn't too excited.
It didn't go over, did it?
Yeah, it did go over too well. He sent everybody to their rooms, and I wasn't in my room. Kenny Morrow was my roommate, and it was in our phone rang. It couldn't be 2 minutes, and it was Craig Patrick saying, "Herb wants to see you." Somebody squealed me up really quick, so I got a little bit of the lecture of my life that night. But it was all good fun. But Herb was a special guy, obviously, and there's a reason they won the gold medal, and he was certainly the big part of it.
I get to ask you one thing about the Thrash, because you may not know our plane. We used to call it the trash can, and the first flight we walk up, I'm with Andrew Burnett, who's going to become a great buddy of mine by the time our days in Atlanta are done. And there's like 3 mechanics looking up at the wing, and there's parts on the ground, and we're like, "What the? Are we getting on this thing? Like, where did you guys come up with that plane?" And like, was it even a plane, or was it a bus that you stuck some wings on? Like, what happened there?
Yeah, the Hawks really wanted to have their own plane, and so somebody went out and bought this plane. It was so that was in 1998. We started using it. It was a 1969 plane.
Oh, wow.
Ray, that's why I flew commercial most of the time. But yeah, I can remember the stories about that plane, and I remember one of the first times I got on it. One of the guys early on came up from the back and said, "Hey, somebody must have left their clips on here. The NBA team had just gotten off, and their mag for their handgun was left on the plane."
Oh, boy.
I'm like, okay, but I guess the best was I don't think you were there, Ray. 2000, and we were playing in Carolina. And the plane, we're having a hard time getting it pressurized. And the pilot said, "We'll go. We're just going to fly under 8,000 feet."
Oh, that was the solution?
I said, "Wait, the plane's not going to pressurize. So you're going to fly." "Oh, yeah, it's all good." Needless to say, I grounded the plane that night. And we stayed overnight in Carolina and flew commercial back. But yeah, we had some stories.
The pilot, by the way, I forget his name, awesome guy. He always came out to say hi, and he had his tie never done up to the top all the time. So we called him Stryker from the airplane movies. And we're like, "Who's flying the plane?" And he's like, nah, no problem. Everything was no problem.
Yeah.
So,
do you know what that plane we did with that plane in the summertime? You probably don't know this story. Where they take all the first class seats out and put it back in coach seats, and we rented it to the state, and that's how they transported prisoners around the state of Georgia.
we were the same during the winter. You guys held us hostage there. We couldn't get out.
That's outstanding. Hey, Donnie, we could keep you for an hour, but we're not going to do that. We appreciate you taking the time to join us this week, and all the best leading up to the trade deadline and the rest of the season.
You got it. Always a pleasure being with you guys. See you down the road.
Great to see you, Donnie. We'll see you soon.
All right, Ray. Thank you.
Ray, I know I say this often with our guests because we have great guests, and some of our best guests historically on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast have been guests who are connected to your past, and a lot of them connected to that run with the Atlanta Thrashers. But man, when I think of general managers and the history and the personality and everything that goes into doing that job, Donnie Waddell for me is right near the top of the list.
He has had some amazing stories that he's had to live through, right? Like, he's really respectful in talking about, when the Thrashers came in, it was a NBA centered ownership group.
Yeah.
Basically, they said, here are the Braves. There's their budget. Here are the basketball. Here's their budget. Oh yeah, this little chunk over here. Here's the Thrashers. And I know Donnie's, they had that thought, as soon as I can get rid of this expansion roster, we're going to be way better. Like they knew, like they didn't look at that roster and go, hey, we got a playoff chance.
No.
Like there are, honestly, this is a book. If I could get off my ass, it's a book. It really is. And that story about the plane transporting prisoners, I had no idea. It's so perfect because our team was so bad. It was so bad. And it is really, it's really something that he's been able to stay in the game after that. But like you said, he goes, I did what the ownership wanted.
Yeah.
Like Dregs, how many times do you talk to a manager and they go, this is what the ownership wants. And it's their money. You've got to play along. The other thing I want to say is, that 1980 Olympic team, Don has an amazing view of it.
Yeah.
But don't forget, the game started in February and he got cut and hurt his knee in January. He was right there.
Heartbreaking.
He's had a great career. He's a terrific guy.
Yeah.
Funny as all heck. And thanks to Donnie to come on.
Super sharp hockey man as well. All right. I know what I'm doing this weekend, and that's just basically beating up my phone with trade speculation and everything else. How about you?
I got the Canucks game tonight, Thursday night. And then after the game, John Shorthouse,
that's right.
in a really unselfish thing, we're going to zip out of there. Shorty's going to drive me to the airport. I assume he's going to stop, and then I'm going to get out. I'm going to get on the red eye. I'm going to fly to Toronto. I'm going to sleep for 4 hours. I'm going to get on a flight to Detroit. And I've got Detroit Saturday afternoon. Here's the key to Saturday afternoon games. Games at 3.
Yes.
You're out of the rink at 6. I've got an 8 o'clock flight to Denver.
Oh, boy. That's tight.
And so there's no fiddling around there. Are we done? See you next week.
Yeah.
Out of there. And then I fly to Denver, stay overnight in Denver, and I'm home Sunday morning. So while you're on the phone, all have racked up about 9,000 flight miles.
All right. Well, keep your ear to the ground, by the way. I need all the help I can get. At this age,
I don't think you can. Here's the thing, Dregs. If it was easy, everybody would do it. You got to embrace the grind, the grind, love the grind. I'm giving you a talk right now. This is the big weekend. Don't fall asleep.
You know when I love the grind?
I know you won't.
March 9th. That's when I love the grind.
I would say your 2 favorite days are March 9th and July 2nd.
Correct. That is 100% accurate.
Oh,
confirmed.
But embrace the grind.
All right,
you ask the players all year.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to grind through. Well, here you go. Grind through.
Thank you. I needed that. Little pep talk get me going. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's not Herb Brooks' speech, but it's all you're going to get today.
Close. All right. Well, travel safe, planes, trains, and automobiles for you on the weekend, and we'll do it again on Tuesday.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you Tuesday, and I hope you have a great weekend.
And thank you to our sponsors who continue to support Ray and Dregs, our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey, and Tim Hortons. Until next time, stay safe, everybody.